Hi, I'm Dr. Sharon DeVivo, president of Vaughn College, now in our 90th year, and host of our podcast, Future Proof Focus. Through unscripted, honest conversations with prominent industry leaders, students, faculty, and alumni, we will explore diversity, equity, and inclusion in education and employment, and the forces that drive personal and career growth. Let's dive in. We're thrilled today to have Okera Bullen join the podcast today. He graduated from Vaughn in 2022 with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and has been working at a company called Nexans in supply chain management ever since. We're so excited to catch up with him and see what he's been up to. Welcome, Okera.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Yeah,
Definitely happy to have this conversation.
terrific. All right, so let's start from the beginning. When did you realize you wanted to be an engineer?
I don't remember at what age, and I prefer not to go that far back. But basically for as long as I can remember, I thought about, myself. I could visualize myself, being in the aviation field specifically. Thought about being a pilot. That was cool. And then I thought I would have challenges with my height and all kinds of other things. So engineering was kind of that option that gave me the possibility to problem solve, take on challenges, and come up with creative solutions. So I decided to pursue that because that's kind of how my brain worked, solving problems, thinking things through, analytically, and finding a solution that could be beneficial or helpful.
And how did you get to Vaughn specifically?
Yeah, so because I wanted to stay close to home, close to
Mm-hmm.
New York, I was like looking around, what are my options here? And Vaughan was kind of that small community that I found on doing my research, where I'd have I would say really good interaction with the professors, because I'm not sitting in a big auditorium with like 300 people, right? So the accessibility and the I would say the closeness to home were two of the main reasons why I chose fun.
Yeah, I mean, I am of the belief once you go small college, you never go back. I did both. I did the 700 lecture hall and the tiny 200 person institution, and you're absolutely right. I loved my small place because I knew everybody, and I could really contribute to the community and feel the impact. Right? Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. It's a really
completely.
important point right there.
Yeah. So, okay, so you get a degree in mechanical engineering. You kind of have your sights set on something maybe in aviation and aerospace, and you're at an electrification company doing supply chain management. Tell me how that happened.
Yeah, so interesting career segue. I had been actually working previously with in the international public sector. Years ago, in the early part of my professional life, I joined the international public sector for, I wanted to do things for the planet, and that was one of the directions I thought made sense for me at the time. And I kind of fell into supply chain and procurement, and it was an interesting field for me. It was challenging, and it gave me the opportunity to draw a direct line from the work that I was doing and the actual impact that it was having on people's lives, right? So some of the projects I'd worked on, in the international public sector was, supporting field missions in remote locations. So for me, that was definitely super interesting, and you know allowed me, like I said, to see that direct line between what I was doing and the impact it was having. So it was an easy decision for me, when I thought to myself, what is the next challenge that I want to kind of take on in my career, because I had gotten to a place in international public sector where I felt like I needed a different challenge, a new growth opportunity. Um, so I looked at the different industries where I could possibly fit in, have an impact as well, and supply chain in in the renewable sector, electrification. It was all just interesting and cool, and I felt like I could definitely make an impact there. So yeah, that's kind of why I started looking in this direction.
And for our listeners, can you talk a little bit about, right, we've got a huge investment in offshore wind coming in the right off the coast of New York. talk about Nexans' role in that and specifically how you're contributing to that work.
So Nexans is, we call ourselves a pure electrification player. Basically, the company's, 100 plus years old, has been a cable manufacturer for a long time. And I would say over the last several decades has been manufacturer and EPCI contractor. So leading in the offshore wind space and electrification space by producing export cable, which connects the wind farm to the land. We also do interconnectors, which are huge high voltage subsea cable that transmit electricity from one place to another over hundreds of miles. Here in the northeast, off the coast of Long Island, there are a few wind farms that are under development, and we're contracted to engineer, design, manufacture, transport, and install the export cable to connect those wind farms onto different points, uh, interconnecting points on Brooklyn and as well as Long Island.
Oh, that's amazing. How exciting. I mean, it is going to change the landscape for New York, the climate, um, right? I mean, it must feel like in your goal to make a difference in the world, this has to be right at the top, right?
Absolutely. From my perspective, I'd like to have some impact in some small way to, move the needle toward renewable resources, sustainable energy, and just leave the planet in a better place than the way that I found it, right? So I felt like that would be a really good opportunity to kind of help the lead, um, our state, our country in that direction. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's dig a little bit into the supply chain management piece. So we've just added a new supply chain management certificate. Can you talk a little bit about, the kinds of things you're doing? Sourcing, procurement, logistics, inventory management, and why you think this might be a good field for other Vaughn students, students in general, to consider?
So yeah, so I mean, in general, supply chain professionals, do a lot more than just, I guess, support the delivering of packages, right? We're setting strategy for, how those products are flowing, those goods and services across the value chain. So for me, I am specifically supporting our installation campaign. So the installation of that cable off the coast of Long Island. Um, and there, you'd be interested to know lots of different goods and services that are required in order to make that happen, right? So there's local logistics, there's movement of the cable from our plant. We have a manufacturing facility in South Carolina, close to Charleston, in an area called Goose Creek. And it's actually the only US manufacturing facility that produces this specific type of cable. So we have to move the cable from there. So we'll be looking at, subcontracting to logistics companies. We'll be looking at vessels and having, support vessels for our main cable lay vessels. We'll be looking at on-site um, project management, supporting onshore excavation, construction services, anything that you could think of that would be required on a large construction site, we may need it. And we may need also things for the offshore as well. So resupplying the workers offshore, transferring them back and forth. So that is how I am working in the procurement field. But if you look at any of the largest corporations in the world, you can clearly see that they're all huge supply chain companies essentially. That product has to come from their manufacturing facility to your door. And it happens seamlessly, and you don't even have to think about it. That's because supply chain professionals are making sure that that happens. You only hear about chain professionals when, I don't know, a global pandemic happens and things don't show up when they're supposed to, right? And then everyone's like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And it's like, "Well, the supply chain, yeah." But normally it'll work seamlessly, and you won't even have to think about it. So yeah, that's, I would say, one of the benefits of supply chain career is, it offers you a challenge. It offers you an opportunity to make a difference and just kind of be in the background, do the work, and everyone's satisfied. You don't have to be in the headlines until maybe something goes wrong, and then everyone kind of looks at you, and then you fix the problem. That's kind of how that works.
Well, and I would think very transferable skills to a variety of industries, right? I mean, that ability to manage, to project manage the supply chain for whatever the widget is, right? Whether it's a cable or a blade for the offshore wind, right? That skill set is something that is going to stand you well for your whole career.
No, definitely. So I just have to add that, I've been a supply chain procurement professional for the last, 15, 16 years myself. And, when I was, again, looking at that career shift to a new industry, um, I had several job offers across various different industries. It's because these skill sets are, as you say, transferable. Part of your supply chain skills training, you'll learn things like active listening, and just general problem solving skills, which apply everywhere. If you learn the skill to kind of listen and apply, what it is, the information you're taking in, analyze it, and then come up with a solution in one sector, that skill set works in any sector. So it's definitely one of those skills that can work anywhere for sure.
So, Okira, kind of thinking back to your undergraduate days at Vaughn, what sort of advice would you give, current students about, the things they should be involved in or how they can best set themselves up for a career in supply chain management, procurement, offshore wind, electrification? What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, so I would say, you've a really good resources at Vaughn. It's not just the actual courses that you're taking, but a lot of, or some of the professors that I actually sat with, they're working professionals themselves. I was taking a lot of evening classes, so they're already working professionals. They have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge that you can apply. So that was one of the resources I actually leaned on when I was at Vaughn. Just talking to them, asking questions. What was this like? What's this like? And they were always, really willing to help answer questions. Just talk things through. So I would say that that's one of the things I would probably encourage you very strongly to do. In addition to, of course, keeping up and getting good grades and all that. But just lean on those resources that are there readily available for you. You'll find that invaluable professional experience in those professors, and they can just kind of share that knowledge with you. And I've always found them to be really just willing to have those conversations openly.
Yeah, terrific. Oh, great advice. Thank you. So, Okira, one question that I always ask my guests is what's the most daring thing you've ever done and how did you talk yourself into it?
Yeah, that's a good one. Um, Daring. Yeah, I don't know if I'm not really much of a risk taker. Let's say that. I think things through like three, four times before I pull the trigger on any decisions. And you know, so for me, I would say probably one of the most daring things I did. Well, a year and a half ago, I completely changed career path. Right, I moved from the public sector to the private sector. But before I did that, I asked questions. I called up my friends who worked in the private sector. I asked them about interviewing. What types of questions would they ask? What type of skill sets do I need to highlight? What types of skills do I need to acquire? Um, it was definitely a difficult decision for me. I played it over in my mind like multiple times. What if the culture was different? And it is. What if the people that I work with are different? And they are. But just being as prepared as possible for that moment, for that transition. Um, took a lot of, like I said, internal conversation and just leaning on resources that were available in my community, friends, other colleagues, just talking to them, getting advice, reading and trying just to understand what I was trying to achieve for myself. And how working or talking through with other people could help me to get there. That was kind of how I processed that transition. So yeah, that's kind of what I would say was the most daring thing I did.
So, like a good engineer, you tried to squeeze all the risk out of it before you made the
Yes,
jump.
absolutely.
I love it. I love it. I love
Risk
it.
mitigation all day.
That's right. That's great. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today. It's been it's been wonderful to talk to you and to catch up and to know how well you're doing after your time at Vaughn. So, as Okera noted, a job in supply chain management offers diverse career opportunities across a variety of industries with a multitude of opportunities to advance and grow. Check out Vaughn's supply chain management certification program at our website, www.vaughn.edu. Thanks, Okira. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. Great day to you as well.
Have a question? Email us at futureprooffocus@vaughn.edu. And don't forget to subscribe, follow, and rate the podcast. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.